nonprofit organizations that have done literally nothing to improve the homelessness situation except exacerbate it. Ohio spends $78 million, over 7,000 per capita of your money is being spent to alleviate homelessness, in effect, do nothing. Louisiana spends 27 million, which is almost $7,000 per person. Illinois, 88 million, which is about $6,700 per person. Delaware spends over almost 6 million, small state, but it's still over $6,000 per person of money that they have no respect for. They have no idea where it comes from. They just extract it from the economy and spend it. These are just three examples how money is denigrated, devalued, and debased in our society. So what I'd like to do now is explain what money really is. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is Mark Shupe, the author of the Moneyball Method, a middle-class manifesto for objective investing, and this is the Moneyball Method podcast. During the last two presentations, I discussed the performance of capital markets in America and around the world, and I also discussed how they related to recent history and at the same time, how they might have an impact on your personal financial situation. What I want to do today is talk about money in general. As you can see, the title of my book is Moneyball. And what is going on in the United States today, one of the top news headlines is the fraud, billions upon billions of dollars worth of Medicaid and child care fraud in particular in the state of Minnesota. But this is just one instance, and this is a problem that occurs all over America. And it's not limited to Minnesota, of course. It's California, Mississippi, Ohio, where I live, Illinois, New York. You just don't know where this particular Pandora's box is going to open and where it will lead. And I'm not here to discuss the details of the fraud, the criminal activity, the political appeasement of it, the political participation in it. What I am going to talk about is the general cause of all of this fraud and the criminal activity that is involved. And that is with regard to money. In particular, why is money debased? Why is money devalued? Why is money demonized? What is the motivation for all of this denigration of money? Essentially, it's the desire for unearned wealth and power. But if you've been listening to my podcast or reading my articles, you understand uniquely something that no one else understands, and that is money is the legacy of someone's productive effort. Money is virtuous. Money is the energy circuit of a civilized society, as written eloquently by Isabel Patterson in her classic book, The God of the Machine. Money is goods and services that enhance your life. In fact, money is goods and services. We do not trade money. We trade goods and services for goods and services. Money just assigns a value to the transaction. And money is denigrated, debased, and devalued in many different ways in America today and throughout the Western world. And of course, the same is true in China and other parts of the world. And I want to start with some facts regarding how money is devalued and debased and denigrated with regard to subsidies for wind and solar. This comes from the Institute for Energy Research, dated January 14th, 2025. Number one, governments, especially in the West, are pouring trillions into subsidies for wind and solar despite their hidden costs, raising consumer costs and undermining economies. Trillions of dollars. Used to be $1 billion was a lot. Where does this money come from? It is coerced. It is extracted from the existing wealth, money in circulation produced by the private sector. And it is extracted because it is denigrated, devalued, and debased by people who have no respect for the virtues of money the legacy of the productive minds that created the wealth in the first place. Number two, the United States, under the Biden-Harris climate bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, is expected to spend $421 billion between 2025 and 2034 in subsidies for wind and solar energy that is rapidly deindustrializing European economies, which have been leading the charge towards net zero. What is net zero? It has to do with carbon emissions, as if CO2 is a toxin. You exhale CO2. If you would like to reduce CO2 emissions, stop exhaling. Number three, industrial electricity prices in the UK, which have pioneered onshore and costly offshore wind, are 4 times as high as in the United States, despite enormous subsidies and reports that much higher deployment of wind and solar energy is needed to meet climate goals. And I'm not here to talk about wind and solar and saving the planet and decarbonization as much as the money that is being extracted and consumed and the wealth that is being destroyed because the general attitude about money throughout the Western world, certainly all over the world, is not good. But let me switch gears to another way that money is debased, devalued, demonized, and that has to do with the fraud that I mentioned that's going on in Minnesota, investigations in Ohio and Mississippi and California. This is data that ranks the top 5 states in terms of child care spending and social services block grants. California spends $1 billion on child care subsidies. Colorado spends $140 million, Illinois $412, Minnesota $185 million, New York $638 million. This comes from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and this is just a small portion of the total amount of dollars that are spent by government, coerced and extracted from the U.S. economy to subsidize political projects that help bureaucrats get elected, collect salaries, and retirement benefits. And I'm not here to talk about the exact numbers or even if there's any benefit derived from this, but the fact that they are extracting money from the economy because they have no respect for the source of the wealth that they are spending. The third aspect, besides energy and childcare, is homelessness, the homeless industrial complex. This comes from the National Homeless Information Project. Connecticut spends $34 million on homelessness, $8,464 per person, per resident, per capita of Connecticut. $8,500 of each individual who lives there goes to subsidize nonprofit organizations that have done literally nothing to improve the homelessness situation except exacerbate it. Ohio spends $78 million, over $7,000 per capita of your money is being spent to alleviate homelessness, in effect, do nothing. Louisiana spends $27 million, which is almost $7,000 per person. Illinois, $88 million, which is about $6,700 per person. Delaware spends over almost $6 million, small state, but it's still over $6,000 per person of money that they have no respect for. They have no idea where it comes from. They just extract it from the economy and spend it. These are just 3 examples how money is denigrated, devalued, and debased in our society. So what I'd like to do now is explain what money really is. Give some examples. Specifically, give you some examples from the Forbes article that was a book review of my book published in July of last year. I'm quoting Forbes journalist John Tamny, and he's talking about money. He wrote, producers decide what monetary forms circulate based on the not so insightful truth that they seek roughly equal amounts of product for the product they bring to market. Again, money is products and services. Applied to equities, meaning the stock market, the very notion that owners of shares in production of the world's most innovative people would blithely exchange what's precious for just any paper is silly. Meaning that producers of wealth, including people who own and trade marketable securities, will not accept just any piece of paper. They will only accept money, currency that they are confident that they can exchange into goods and services. There's two questions I'd like to ask with regard to that quote from John Tamny. What monetary forms do producers accept, and what forms are silly? I think I just answered the question. What they will accept are forms of money that they are confident that they can exchange into goods and services that enhance their lives. What forms are silly? Almost any currency that is not the US dollar. Why? Because the US economy is the most productive in the world. We're not going to accept Russian rubles or Indian rupees or Bitcoin or any other form of currency that is subject to devaluation that is greater than what might be going on in America today. The second quote from the Forbes book review, Shupe chooses reality and aims to convey it to his readers. He tells them to replace the stress and errors of predicting the future and beating the market with the resilience of objective data. From there, he notes the objective investor chooses the destination and uses historical data for the navigational chart. What is objective data? Well, with regard to the Moneyball method and your personal financial situation, it comes in two forms. The objective data is unique to you. What is your net worth? What are your financial assets? What is the taxable nature of those assets? What are the goals and aspirations that you're trying to fund? How much will they cost? When is the money needed? These are things that you know about and can control, and they are important to you living the one life you have in confidence and comfort. That is objective data. The other form of objective data is the capital market assumptions that represent the uncertainty of the future with regard to investment market performance. We use the objective data that is the most reliable, that is driven by prices. What are prices? Prices are the value of securities, stocks, bonds, money market funds, gold, being the four major asset classes that I talked about here the last couple of weeks, in particular, those prices in the forms of money. In other words, money and prices and markets that go back as far as possible, that capture the nature, the essence of each individual asset class into which we might invest. Why is it resilient? Because markets are elegant. They are graceful, they are complex, they are efficient, they respond quickly to changes, whether it be political situations, natural disasters, technological innovation. They are far more responsive to changes in what is going on in society and the culture and the economy than any potential government bureaucrat could hope to achieve. Quote number 3 from the Forbes book review. It's not just that markets yet again gain their vitality from periods of weakness as money relentlessly puts out to pasture what is no longer meeting and leading the needs of the people. It's that all of what's been used to explain market conditions completely misunderstands what money is. Which brings up a couple of more questions. What does money put out to pasture? Businesses, products and services that no longer meet the needs of the consumer or the business owners that are adding value. In other words, every successful, profitable, growing business meets the needs of more people more efficiently than any charity in the history of the world. What do economists misunderstand? They believe, and this is true of the monetarists, the Keynesians in particular, any economic school of thought that supports government intrusion, they believe that money supply is controlled by government. It is not. It is controlled by producers. who will only accept forms of money that they know they can convert into goods and services fairly quickly and easily. It goes back to the first quote that I mentioned several minutes ago. So what is money? I think I explained it at the beginning of this podcast. It is the legacy of productive minds. It is the energy circuit of civilization. Which brings me to my fourth and last quote that I'd like to discuss here in this podcast today. Money rewards production, nothing else. It's where production is, nowhere else. Shupe puts it so well that when we understand that money is the stored legacy of productive minds, we earn a healthy respect for it. Money respects money, so does Shupe, but not most conventional thinkers who comment on money and markets. Hence Shupe's book. And that is the message that I would like to leave with you today. How does conventional thinking disrespect money? And how should investors think about money? Specifically, how should you think about money? How should you think about your money? How should you think about the money of the people that you would like to attract as customers? Or the money of the people that you're going to be supporting, that you're going to be patronizing with your business. Once we have a healthy respect for money, then we can have a better understanding for the tremendous amount of waste and destruction that is caused by government subsidies of wind and solar, of the homelessness industrial complex, of the horribly inefficient Medicare, Medicaid, and public education industries. And those are exactly the subjects that we're going to be talking about in next week's podcast. How does this devaluation, denigration, and debasement of money affect the US economy and economies all over the world? And how do we regain a healthy respect for what money truly represents? Thank you for joining me today, and I hope to see you next week.